an umbrella study of all of these, anecdotal stories. California is so expensive, we can't live here, we can't do. But I was just so heartsick to hear that my friends feel that they have to leave the state. And so I'd like to, if for the commission, maybe to actually, is it real? And if so, why? Or maybe it's just gossip, and we need to, if that's true, then we need to attack that as well. So that's my thoughts on this, and I look forward to hearing other commissioners' thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Byer, followed by Commissioner Hernandez. You're muted, David. David.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Nava. I want to comment about the topic that the scoping memo addressed, which is civil service reform, and make a case for why that's important, not to diminish the passion or the need articulated by other commissioners, rather to make a point that I think we could do two interrelated studies, one on civil service reform, and perhaps a second one on essentially the ability of government to deliver for citizens. And this goes back to, at least personally, my days with Vice President Gore and reinventing government, but it also applies to the Department of Government Efficiency that incoming President Trump has talked about. That is, how do we maintain and grow public trust in the ability of government to deliver goods and services? And there are structural impediments. And as we think forward to the next governor, it's going to take some time to get people to wrap their head around big, complicated projects. And one of the difficulties with civil service reform as a standalone item is it seems like insider baseball. That it seems like a dispute between organized labor and management in Sacramento, in departments no one knows much about. And I think that's the wrong framework. It's kind of mind-bogglingly boring and esoteric, but I think there's a larger unrest, if you will, in the populace about, can government really solve difficult problems? And the frustration that Commissioner Sidley referenced, it's exactly that distrust which is getting in the way of bigger, bolder ideas, because people don't think anything can happen. And there gets to be a degree of cynicism. And I think there's something that we could do, something we could study and make recommendations around, which is the structure of government and its accountability. There have been a bunch of changes at the federal level, enactment of statutes, the Government Accountability Act, where departments are held to a standard of producing particular results. And I just think if we did both civil service reform and took a look at the impediments to delivering things, and I'll pick one example. How hard is it to get a permit to do something in the state of California compared to other states? It's really, really hard. Well, why is that? And how could the state expedite permitting for housing or other things? And we've dealt with this in the past on a kind of sub-specific level like CEQA, but I think there's a larger theme that we're kind of getting in the way of progress by elevating procedure without a balanced accountability about outcomes that improve the rights and opportunities of people who live in the state. So that, if I had a vote, it would be for civil service reform with that kind of broader chapeau or understanding.
All right, thank you. I got Commissioner Hernandez, followed by Vice Chair Cannella, followed by Commissioner Garcetti.
Thank you. I love how commissioners are always in the know. So the Senate and the Assembly has a select committee right now on permitting. Wicks and Juan Carrillo looking at that very issue. So we should at least kind of let them know kind of what we know and maybe help them along. But I'm gonna go back to the larger question of affordability. And I mean, I'm a simple math guy. If the average income staying the same or going up by a certain amount, and the cost of living is going up, we have an issue. So that's why I do like the simplicity of the original request in dealing with electricity. Looking at the numbers right now, I mean, I thought the average bill was still about 120. It looks like we're getting way past $200 in terms of the average utility bill. I did see the report that the agencies are saying that it might be redundant. I mean, it's nice when you get to self-evaluate in terms of all the agencies and the programs that they oversee. But I think that's a great example of the purview of our commission, that we are able to look at the efficiency of government programs and so forth. So it might be good for us to do a second look in terms of what the the PUC, CEC, and so forth are recommending. So I do agree that there has to be a larger conversation about affordability. I don't know if we can start looking at that, but in terms of starting at some quick steps that might have a direct impact on at least 16 million households, I think that this electricity, gas, and a utility issue is something we might be able to tackle.
Thank you. Vice Chair Cannella.
Thank you. I assumed we were going to go through all the scoping memos before we threw some more requests in, so my apologies. But on the electricity costs, I guess we've just abandoned the scoping things, but on the electricity cost, it'd be helpful if the Assembly Member Ortega was here to kind of defend her request since she's on this committee, but I'll do my best. You know, I think the PUC doing the study is like, you know, it impacts them. If they start removing items that are part of the bill, they could have a reduction in staff. So it's like the fox guarding the hen house. So I still think it's a worthwhile endeavor. Maybe it's out of deference for Senator Bradford, although the PUC is doing. I still think it's a worthwhile study to do, and as Jose said, it impacts so many Californians. And then on the Commissioner Breyer, when he said, "Why does it take so long to build something?" Just anecdotally, I'm a civil engineer. We process projects, and in one city, it takes over 6 months just to get one plan check. So I just wonder if this is a way to kind of hit the brakes on development without being in the crosshairs of the state. You just slow everything way down, and
Right.
you don't get in trouble. So that would be an interesting study on its own. But back to the original point, I still think the electricity cost is a worthwhile study to do.
Yeah, just be grateful you're not trying to build something in Santa Barbara.
Or
Commissioner,
San Francisco.
Yeah.
San Francisco's 300 and some odd days. It's almost a year.
Commissioner Garcetti, and then Commissioner Aaroner.
I'm not quite sure where to start. I just finished building an ADU here, and they did the building really fast, but then I'm being told they cannot issue a certificate of occupancy until the electricity is connected, right? That makes sense. But I'm also told it'll take 4 to 7 months for the Department of Water and Power to get to it.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
4 to 7 months. This is crazy. And
That's
doing it.
fast.
And frustrating. And frustrating. So you go back to one permit, and you can't blame the DWP per se, because they says that we have a limited number of staff, and everyone is building ADUs. Everyone is rebuilding their house. We just don't have the staff to do it. So if we look at affordability, and that is a big issue, it's just not the friends that we have. But if you're a grandparent, your grandkids and your kids are thinking of moving out because they can't afford. They can't see how they can afford. And it goes beyond. It's the insurance, just the auto insurance for kids, for boys especially. My God, what they have to pay. So it's the bigger question of affordability. So I want to go and look at the cost of electricity, but let's make it broader than that. Let's, if we can, do it. Too bad we don't have room for 3 or 4, 5 scoping memos or reviews doing it. The one I added, I want to just recently, it was the front page news of the LA Times, that is not news to, I think, any of us, is the great water issue in the San Joaquin Valley, where, you know, the land is dropping. And that means because the water is being used. What is the future of that? You know, can we look at that? Can we get some experts to come in and say, this is what we have to do? What's the state's role? I'm not sure. but it should be something in there. So, and with Dion's message about foster children, I have some experience only through my son. My son and daughter-in-law have had 11 foster children. And there is a crying need to help them when they reach majority.
Let's do Commissioner Erner and then Commissioner Byer.
So just before I leave, I just wanted to comment on Commissioner Byers, because I don't think the topic is civil service. I think it's what you broadened it to when you were talking about it, right? Because the question are the state agencies able to deliver the services that the public wants, right? And to respond appropriately. We heard a little bit today in the testimony regarding the public-private partnerships, because it gives state agencies, at least it sounds like it, some flexibility, some room to begin to look at whether or not their service delivery systems are working well, and if not, how could they improve them? I don't think you're right. I don't want to get involved in the employer-employee relationships at civil service and all of that. I don't think that's the issue. I think it really is the larger question of whether or not our state government is responding to the public and for what the public needs, and how do they find out what the public needs. So I'd like you to rename the topic. That's what I'm saying. And everybody, I have to leave. I'm so sorry, but thank you all for having this conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dion. Commissioner Byer.
Yeah, I want to thank Commissioner Cannella for expressing his views on electricity costs. And I came away actually persuaded by his arguments, because having the state examine itself may be limited. But I also want to note that if we choose to take that topic, we should recognize that some of the costs are a result of very embedded subsidies and social policy choices about energy sources. So it's not going to be just PG&E or Southern California Edison are bad. It's going to be, how do you make the trade-off between an environmental goal and climate change oriented policy? How do you create subsidies for lower income people? Those go a long way to explaining electricity costs. And we should just be honest with each other. If we're going to do that, which maybe state agencies are going to be reluctant to do, we should do it with eyes open. And that's actually why I think Commissioner Cannella's observations are well taken, if that's what the legislative members are really asking us to do, not looking at the details of rate setting, but the underlying policy that's driving the rate setting increases.
Okay, Sidley and Hernandez had hands up, but they took them down. Did you mean to do that? Sidley's hand. All right, Sidley.
So I believe that Commissioner Byer is exactly correct, that it is policies. And so I want to put out there that it would be real if we look at that. And I'm not opposed to looking at that, but I do think if we're really going to do this study and make some recommendations, sadly, when people say something is just $1 more on their bill, for somebody who's already $5 short, $1 more is a lot. And it is a difficult trade-off for some of these environmental requirements. And California is the tip of the spear. And, we all take great pride in that. But I do think, back to my original thought, is all of this really making California so unaffordable? Or is California still affordable, and yet we're drinking cleaner water and breathing cleaner air? I mean, that is a value. And so I am happy to start with utilities, but I also want to keep in mind sort of the bigger picture of how the Little Hoover Commission can maybe help the state really address what is out there now in the ether and the chatter, and with a new governor and with the new president, and people are all pointing and saying, well, California, they're nuts out there, they're crazy. Well, let's try to put some facts to that? And are we or are we not? And so I appreciate, let me go back and say also, Vice President Cannella, I thought the memos were great. I read them. I know we didn't discuss them, but I appreciate them very, very much. And I did. And so, you know, I'm done now, but those were my thoughts. So
I just want to add, you're just better at this than I am, is really what my point was. So.
I am so not better at this than anybody. I've been around a long time, but I'm not better at all. But thank you.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Echoing Commissioner Beer is correct. This is not about how utilities are bad, simple math. I mean, most folks won't know what goes into the bill. So, I mean, in and of itself, that'd be a great process. But most of the large utilities make zero money on generation. So as the cost of generation go up, guess who pays for it? But things like that will come out when we do the study. And it is more of a policy, vision, mission statement in terms of affordability, how it fits in with the larger goals of the state.
Yeah, let me turn to Ethan. And I think in our conversations about the sort of inquiries that we're getting from the legislature, and I should mention, it was last week, I guess it was, that we met with the speaker. And during our meeting, there was a reference to this whole issue of affordability. Can you summarize for us what your understanding is of requests from Ortega, for example, and Bradford about what they want us to look at as it relates to the electricity, but also I think what the commissioners are saying is the electricity is only one aspect of it, and it doesn't explain everything else. So if it takes Commissioner Garcetti, 7 months to get a certificate of occupancy because the infrastructure doesn't support getting an inspector out to his property, right? So there's lost opportunity there. If permitting is a problem, but you have a select committee on permitting, what is your understanding of what you sense from what we heard from the speaker as well as from the legislature on the affordability conversation?
I'm happy to answer that question, Mr. Chairman. I do want to know Commissioner Byer still has his hand up. I don't know if you wish to go to him first.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I should have lowered it.
Okay. Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, there are sort of several requests, or two different requests on affordability. There is the request from Senator Bradford and essentially sort of seconded by Assemblymember Ortega to look at their request, as initially expressed, was fairly narrow, to look at public purpose programs in electricity costs. However, Commissioner Hernandez asked us at the last meeting to sort of expand the scoping memo to look at the general cost of electricity, or even it could be of all utilities. So there is that pending request. There is, as the commission may recall, a separate request letter. We did not include it in this packet because it's been included in several packets previously, but there is a separate request from Assemblymember Jackson and Assembly members Alanis, Lee, and Rubio to look at affordability in the state generally. Their request was to do almost sort of a literature review, a compilation of studies on that already exist on affordability in the state. So that's referenced in we didn't include the letter in this packet, but the request is referenced at page 56 of the packet. Both the speaker and the pro tem have expressed a general interest in affordability. I have not spoken in great detail with their staffs about that, but they certainly have expressed a general interest in affordability of cost of living in the state. One potential path forward here, I suppose, Mr. Speaker, if it's the will of the commission, would be to proceed with a study on electricity / general utility costs as requested by Senator Bradford and Assemblymember Ortega. And we could come back at the next meeting if the commission wishes to have a longer sort of focus on general affordability, perhaps some additional preliminary research would be warranted there. We could come back to the next meeting with a proposal for perhaps a series of additional studies over the coming year on general issues of affordability. And then the commission could decide if it wishes to proceed with that series or just do the one-off on electricity. But all of that is really up to the commission. I hope that's responsive to your question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, well, I think the Vice Chair Canal.
I just think that sounds excellent. I just think that would be so useful to all of us, and I think it'd be useful to the legislature to understand affordability issues in California. So I mean, to have a series of those types of things, as Commissioner Sidley kind of highlighted, I think would be excellent information.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Want to agree with that. Always say that policy doesn't happen in a vacuum. So if you're looking at affordability and energy, I mean, there's all the other sectors that you can look at as well.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem to me that part of what happens, and you know, being a former legislator, is it's too easy to get excited about the new bright shiny thing, and you then fail to fully consider all of the related significant consequences from that. And you know, like, let's take a look at what California wants to do with, you know, methane and recycling and the food waste and all the rest of that stuff, without really giving full consideration to implementation. I think that's part of what, there's a real problem, I think, lawmakers, myself, you know, including having been there, is we have certain ideas about the way things ought to be, but we don't necessarily sit down and go, okay, but how are you going to get there? How are you going to, if you're going to, like, for example, if you're going to tell people they can no longer throw their batteries, their AA batteries, into the trash because it goes into the landfill, but you don't give thought to how do you facilitate the collection of the batteries and where they get disposed of, then what you end up is people just, you know, they wrap a battery up in a bag and throw it in the trash anyway, because there's no really smart way to make it easy for people to do things. And I think on the electricity, you know, look, as what Commissioner Sidley and Beyer has said, there are policy decisions about, we want to have, you know, want to move to renewables, and isn't that great? And shouldn't everybody have an electric car by 2035? But forget about the fact that you can't charge it, and too many of the charging stations don't work, and the plugs don't fit all the cars. There's a disconnect. So if I think it makes perfect sense too, that we have a rolling series, right? Act 1 is maybe is electricity. Act 2 is going to be either permitting or construction cost. Act 3 is going to be something else, as the commission learns more about the discrete elements, right? If you take the issue of affordability and then you diagram it out, what are the elements, right, of affordability? And what is the state of California's role in either making things more affordable or making things unaffordable? And that sure seems to me as something that would have significant value to the legislature and to people in this state. Commissioner Hernandez.
But no, I didn't want to interrupt, but just say that time is an issue, though, that if we are moving this route, I mean, maybe we do agree to start with one right now and then fold it out, because I mean, I know there's like a 3 or 4 month lag time in terms of reports, but I definitely know that in February, you're going to get at least 60 to 100 different pieces of legislation trying to deal with affordability. It might be good to start kind of weighing in early.
Yep. Yep, I agree. So Ethan, and just, I mean, this is, it's kind of hard to construct the architecture, right, in terms of what the direction for staff, but you know, between everything that's been put out there today, you've got something, and you could, I don't really think it serves a purpose for us to do a library review. All right, the request that we review, you know, all the other literature that's housed wherever it's housed and create a list for people to look at. I don't think that's not the way we ought to be spending our time. I don't, you know, if some commissioners disagree with me, then, you know, please say so, but somebody else can do that. We have a different set of skills that are going to be, I think, more appropriately applied if we pursue, for example, a review of the electricity issue that was raised by Bradford and Ortega.
So I believe, Mr. Chairman, if I can try to distill the direction down a bit, Commissioner Hernandez mentioned starting with one topic. It seems that the view of the commission is that we should start with the cost of electricity as the first topic in a potential series on affordability. So we would go ahead and begin that study now, and then we would simultaneous with that develop a proposal for a series of additional studies on the components of affordability, probably coming back to the commission at the next meeting with that proposal for, as you termed it, a rolling series over the next year on affordability. But we would go ahead and start first with electricity. If that is what I would understand to be the direction of the commission at this point, although of course, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so if somebody disagrees and thinks that summary misses the mark, let us know. Not seeing any raised hands or screams of outrage. Sounds to me like you've got it. You've got it, Ethan.
Okay. Very good, Mr. Chairman. We will proceed along those lines then. So then, if you wish, Mr. Chairman, we can go back to the agenda order.
Yeah.
Item number 3 on the agenda is the consideration of the business meeting minutes from November 7th. Those are on page 14 of the agenda.
Right. Any questions, comments, or corrections with respect to the minutes?
Move for approval.
Seeing none, there's a motion by Vice Chair Cannella. There's a second. Second by Sidley.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, aye.
Mr. Vice Chairman?
Aye.
Commissioner Aaroner, Commissioner Byer, Assembly Member Chen, Commissioner Garcetti,
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Assembly Member Ortega, Commissioner Sidley.
Yep, aye.
That motion is adopted, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Ethan, this is David.
Yes.
I would have been aye, but I had you on mute.
Okay.
Okay.
I will record you as an aye, Commissioner Byer.
Thank you. And I'm leaving. Sorry.
Bye, David.
Bye.
So moving on then, we still do have a quorum, Mr. Chairman. So moving on to item number 4, as commissioners know, we released our first report on the implementation of artificial intelligence in state government earlier this week. Now we're presenting our second report on AI, which begins at page 19 of the packet. This report focuses on how AI can serve disadvantaged communities with a specific focus on food insecurity, although the draft does contain also a general framework on AI addressing other issues as well. The subcommittee here, Mr. Chairman, as you know, is you and Commissioner Hernandez. But first, before any comments from you, if I may, I will ask Dan, who is the project manager here, to briefly present the report. Dan?
Good morning, commissioners.
Morning.
The Little Hoover Commission has a proud history of promoting innovative and responsible policies to serve Californians, particularly our most vulnerable residents. Moreover, in 2023, Governor Newsom's executive order on generative AI highlighted the potential for this technology to transform government operations while also calling attention to its benefits and risks, especially for historically marginalized communities. The report we are now considering builds on these foundations, providing recommendations for using AI to combat food insecurity and improve outcomes for California's disadvantaged populations. With more than 5.5 million Californians currently receiving food aid and many more struggling to afford enough nutritious food, this is an urgent and essential issue. The recommendations in this report aim to reduce barriers to food aid, modernize aid delivery systems, and support AI adoption by small farmers. The common thread running through all these recommendations is a commitment to equity, ensuring AI benefits everyone, including underserved groups such as college students, non-English speakers, and immigrants. The report closes with a framework for thinking about how AI can be deployed to address pressing social issues more generally. I will now briefly summarize the 9 recommendations. 1, increase CalFresh enrollment. The Department of Social Services should solicit AI-powered solutions to close the significant gap between those eligible for CalFresh and those enrolled. 2, improve existing systems. The state should leverage AI to enhance Benefits Cal and CalSAWS, streamline public feedback, and provide better support for county workers. CalSAWS governance should also be expanded to include state representatives, in community organizations, and the public to foster innovation and address real-world needs. 3, address college student food insecurity. The state and its university partners should use AI and data-driven solutions to increase CalFresh enrollment among college students who often face unique barriers to access. 4, improve language access and immigration support. The state should support county adoption of generative AI's multilingual capabilities to support CalFresh enrollment and service delivery for non-English speakers and immigrants. 5, boost CalFresh retention. The state should explore AI solutions to analyze and improve CalFresh re-enrollment rates, helping more eligible residents stay enrolled. 6, enhance EBT programs. AI should be used to optimize electronic benefit transfer or EBT systems, improving user experience and resource distribution. 7, support small farmers. The Department of Food and Ag should establish grants to help small farmers adopt AI technologies, ensuring equitable access to advanced agricultural tools. 8, host food hackathons. The state should host inclusive hackathons to engage the public in developing innovative technology-based solutions to food access challenges. And finally, 9, strengthen coordination and oversight. The state should establish a food security council to coordinate California's fragmented food aid programs and align efforts across agencies and stakeholders. So, by aligning AI tools with California's values and social challenges, we have the opportunity to revolutionize aid delivery systems and reduce food insecurity for millions of residents. I'm also proud to say that the recommendations in this report are eminently practical, identifying not only specific challenges, but also concrete solutions that policymakers can take up to reduce hunger in California. With that, I'll turn it back over to the chair for any questions or further discussion.
Yeah, let me turn to Commissioner Hernandez. This was your baby. You're the one, you brought it across the doorstep, and then I'll go to Vice Chair Canella.
Well, I mean, thank you for staff and in terms of succinctly presenting the report. I know that we wanted to boil the ocean and show how AI can address poverty, but this is a small example in terms of dealing with extreme need. And so thank you for that. I mean, of note, I mean, we heard the testimony, the frustration in terms of having the resources and services, but not being able to match them with the actual individuals needing those services and resources. So hopefully AI can lend a hand there. But overall, I mean, if this can be the larger example in looking at other sectors, education and so forth, on how AI can address some of these high issues. So thank you for the report.
Vice Chair Canella.
Thank you. First of all, I thought that was great. Great staff report, great work. I use AI for lots and lots of things, and this just seems like a natural way to use it. I am just curious, just for my own edification, recommendation 7, dealing with farms and farmers. How will that help feed poor people? I mean, that's great. We have a lot of small farms in my area, but I'm trying to connect the dots.
Do you
Dan,
want staff to take this on?
Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, we were kind of thinking about, you know, food and food aid and food delivery in a 360-degree sense, and so we wanted to, you know, do something with, you know, small farms and you know, what the Department of Food and Ag could, you know, kind of contribute to this stuff. You know, really what we see in California is, you know, large, you know, scale kind of monoculture farms, you know, taking advantage of the latest and greatest technology, and, you know, smaller, you know, farms which are contributing to, you know, farmers markets, right, contributing to, you know, diversity of the food supply, which, you know, very much has something to do with food insecurity, right, in the sense of, you know, providing, you know, more, you know, diverse and nutritious, you know, food, meals, nutrition. You know, they're lagging behind this, right? And so we wanted to, you know, support these small farms as best we could, you know, help them take advantage of technologies that would otherwise be prohibitively expensive.
And to Mr. Vice Chairman, I might mention that to the degree that which these tools increase production at a relatively low cost, there is simply more food going into the pipeline, which should then in turn reduce prices, hopefully, and allow poor people to be able to buy more food.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Well, I'm very appreciative of the report and continue to be just stunned at how many people are eligible but not enrolled. And there's so many of these programs. I always go back to Denti-Cal and the number of kids who aren't getting cared for, who are eligible, but they're not getting the help and the services. And you know, anything that comes along that facilitates the enrollment of eligible folks so that they can have enough to eat is an important contribution. I mean, I think I mentioned during some of our conversations that the whole idea of food insecurity is just one of those terms that I find sorely lacking. I mean, I'd almost want to change it to be like hungry babies, but we'd probably get in trouble for that. So anyway, so thank you again to staff and Commissioner Hernandez for your leadership and your interest and concern and passion on this. So no further hands raised. I'm sorry, Ethan.
I was just going to say, Mr. Chairman, if the commission wishes to adopt a report, we would need a motion, obviously.
Right, I was gonna, yeah, thank you.
I'll
Is there a
move.
motion?
I
All
thought
right.
the report was excellent, and I thank everybody for working on it. I'm happy to move to adopt the report.
Commissioner Sidley makes a motion and Vice Chair Canella seconds. Call the roll.
Mr. Chairman,
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chairman,
Aye.
Commissioner Eriner, Commissioner Byer, Assemblymember Chen, Commissioner Garcetti,
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Assemblymember Ortega, Commissioner Sidley.
Aye.
That motion is adopted, and we will be releasing the report as soon as we have it formatted, Mr. Chairman.
Great.
Moving on then to item number 5 is consideration of the draft biennial report. Here we omitted those sort of boilerplate language, biographies of the commissioners and so forth, and included beginning on page 44 of the packet only the material that changes each year. I'll just highlight very briefly 2 metrics. In this biennium, we released 13 reports. That's the second most since the year 2000, surpassed only by the previous biennium, 21-22. And we had 15 bills signed into law, passed by the legislature and signed into law, the most since the year 2000. So happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman, if there are any.
Yep, let's open it up for discussion. I just think it really says a lot that that so much of so many of our recommendations are embraced by folks over there at the Capitol. And I will tell you that during our meeting with the speaker, he did compliment the Little Hoover Commission for the quality of work that we've been performing. So any questions, comments with respect to the draft biennial report? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt the report as presented? Commissioner Garcetti makes the motion, second by Commissioner Hernandez.
Mr. Chairman,
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chairman,
Aye.
Commissioner Eriner, Commissioner Byer, Assemblymember Chen, Commissioner Garcetti,
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Assemblymember Ortega, Commissioner Sidley.
Aye.
That motion is adopted, Mr. Chairman.
Terrific.
Moving along, if we may, Mr. Chairman, to item number 6, that is the project and meeting schedule. Just to summarize briefly, that begins on page 53 of the packet. To provide an update on current studies, as you know, this was our second hearing on public philanthropic partnerships. We hope to work with the subcommittee there for potential draft recommendations for working with outside funders. On the other half of the study, where we want to address how the state can better work with nonprofits in providing funding to the philanthropic community, we are working on a survey of nonprofits to learn more about their experience with state grants and contracts. We're working now with the California Nonprofits Association. Jeff Green from the association testified in October, and we're hoping that we can partner with them on a survey of nonprofits. That's very much midstream, and we'll update the commission on that as we move forward. Happy to answer any, and we now obviously have a new project on cost of electricity. Happy to answer any questions, or if not, I'll move on to the future meeting schedule. The proposed dates for 2025 are on page 53 of the packet. One thing to note is that we have not yet specified which meetings will be principally in person. The reason for that is that I believe that moving forward, we should try to focus the in-person meetings on business meetings where we have reports to adopt, discussion of future topics, that kind of thing. Traditionally, we tended to take testimony in person, but increasingly what we have found is that witnesses do not wish to appear in person, or they would prefer anyway to appear via Zoom. And so there are times when the commissioners may recall this happened in November when we transitioned to a Zoom meeting because almost all the witnesses wanted to testify via Zoom. So I think that going forward in the new year, it may be necessary to take testimony principally via Zoom, or maybe best to do so, and to conduct the in-person meetings when we have business to transact. And that will require that we have a little bit of flexibility. We'll try to plan ahead as best we can, a couple of months in advance as the staff, to let you all know. But we'll sort of specify which meetings are in person as we go forward. But the dates are hopefully not going to change, and they're at page 53. So again, happy to answer any questions if you like, Mr.
Just
Chairman.
let me add too, for staff, the in-person in the past, we had a home for our in-person meetings. It was in the Capitol. It was in one of the meeting rooms, and so we routinely would meet there, and everybody understood that that was sort of the Little Hoover Commission meeting room. Well, that doesn't exist anymore, and staff is confronted with having to sort of scout around to find out which agency has an office that's available for us to use, that has the technology necessary to conduct the meetings. And so that as we make decisions about in-person meetings, that's part of what staff has to deal with as well. Commissioner Hernandez?
Does it have to be an agency, or can it just be somewhere that's accessible to the public?
It can be anywhere that is accessible to the public, Commissioner Hernandez.
And that has the technology.
Correct, yes.
Because we've got to get it out over the air. And I think, the witnesses have become more sophisticated, and they're going like, nah, you know what, I can do this from my desk in my office. I don't have to drive to downtown Sacramento and try to find parking. And so I got a feeling that, now this law sunsets at the end of 2025. The law that allows us to have the remote meetings. Whether or not some legislator picks it up, we don't know yet. We'll find out. Commissioner Sidley.
So I'm going out of turn, and I apologize, but I wanted to go back for just 1 second to talk about the second report, which we voted on, and we moved through them so quickly, and that's all great. I just want to put out a huge thank you to the staff. I mean, those numbers would not exist without the hard work of the staff. And certainly the commissioners are all here and participating as well. But pen to paper starts with the staff, ends with the staff, and phenomenal work. Just absolutely so proud to have my name attached to that, and wanted to just personally say thank you. And you should be so proud of what you've done and how you support the state through your work with the Little Hoover Commission. So I know I'm out of turn, but I didn't get an opportunity to say that. I wasn't quick enough. But truly so proud of being a commissioner on this committee, and to be with all of you commissioners, and specifically also with the staff. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And I would tell you that in my conversations with people, they find it hard to believe that we have as few staff people as we do, given the volume of work and the quality of work that's created here. So thank you for those remarks. Okay, I think that we've adopted the meeting schedule.
Very good, Mr. Chairman. So moving on, and thank you, Commissioner Sidley, for your remarks as well. Moving on then to item number 7, which is the administrative update. The principal item here is simply consideration of the proposed revisions to the Commission's rules of procedure. We don't really consult these all that often, but they should be, I think, up to date. They're provided to every new member of the Commission and so forth, and they do govern our process. And in reviewing them, it struck me that there was very antiquated language, grossly sexist language, antiquated provisions in terms of technology, provisions that were out of date with the Bagley-Keene Act, And so we've produced, starting at page 92 of the packet, proposed revisions. I don't think I'll go through all of these given the time, but I'm happy to explain any of them, or we can adopt these, or the commission can ask us to make additional changes, whatever's the will of the commission.
Vice Chair Canella?
Yes, thank you. At risk of being that guy, I mean, that person that points out obvious errors, Article 4, Section 3 still says chairman and vice chairman,
Oh.
just so may want to deal with that.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for pointing that out. I apologize that we missed one. Section 3, you are correct, Mr. Vice Chairman. We
Yep, I
will
see that.
incorporate that as a change.
All right, perfect, thank you. Any other questions, comments with respect to this item?
Does
Rules
this
of
need a
procedure.
vote?
We can take, yeah, is there a motion?
I'll move. Thank
All right,
you.
Commissioner Sidley moves,
Second.
Commissioner Johnson seconds. Got to get you on the record here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chairman,
Aye.
Commissioner Aaroner, Commissioner Byer, Assemblymember Chen, Commissioner Garcetti,
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Assemblymember Ortega, Commissioner Sidley.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So those rules are now adopted.
Yay.
The last item on the agenda is the implementation and impact report. And I just wanted to mention here very briefly, given the press of time, our legislative outreach. Ally has really done the work here, but we sent a sort of general email about the commission to every legislative staff member on our list. That includes every chief of staff or every legislative director. I believe in all it went to 192 staff members, and we continue to update that list. The last I knew, it had been opened by more than 100. We can tell that from MailChimp. And we've had contact with several offices in the last few days, either as a result of that contact or just as people are considering bill introductions for next year. So we're working now with offices on a variety of topics to talk about recommendations in past reports. And we can, once we get to the January meeting, I think we can provide a better update on bills that have actually been introduced that would implement our recommendations. But we've been busy formatting reports, but we also are reaching out to the legislature, updating the list so that we're current with the changes in the staff that have occurred with the new legislators coming in, and doing that kind of outreach and talking to offices now about legislation in the coming year.
And I see Ms. Powell is on the screen. Welcome. Do you have any, would you like to add something?
No, Ethan did a perfect
I just
job.
stole her entire presentation, Mr. Chairman.
It's Commissioner Hernandez.
Just a procedural question. In the past, has the Little Hoover Commission ever hosted something in the Capitol for new members or anything like that?
We have generally not hosted an actual event. We have held webinars on. Go ahead.
Are commissioners allowed to host something? So say I host something in the Capitol and invite some of the commissioners to be there, meet and greet with some of the members. Is that allowed?
I believe that we could. It would depend. We would technically, if there were a quorum of the commission, that would become a public meeting, and we would have to serve notice. So that might be somewhat awkward.
Is there an interest from the commissioners to meet some of the new members if I hosted something in January in Sacramento?
Yeah, I say yes.
And things like, no way.
Which is good because you won't have a quorum, so you can't all go, and I willingly decline. So,
yeah, well, and I suppose if it were some sort of a thing of a reception, there's always a possibility of doing it in a way that we don't talk about commission business, right? This is we could introduce ourselves to new members. We not talk about the commission business, which then avoids the issue of the Bagley-Keene stuff. So
as long as there is no discussion of the commission, that is true, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So perhaps it would be good if
I'd like Commissioner Hernandez
you and I and
Ethan to
Commissioner
talk.
Hernandez worked on this as
Yeah.
a project for January.
Nice idea.
Very good. Very good.
Anything?
And Mr. Chairman, that concludes our agenda for today.
Oh, look at that, 10 minutes after 12, beautiful. So anyway, I want to thank everybody again for your participation, and want to wish everybody a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, all the rest of the other kinds of things that people celebrate. It's a pleasure to see all of you. I really do miss you, and enjoy the time that we spend together, even if it's on Zoom. So I think that's it, Ethan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Bye, everybody.
Happy holidays, everyone.